Hello and welcome to Indus News, live from Islamabad. I am Muneeb Hamid with the news of this hour. Let's begin with the top stories first. The Taliban are expected to announce the formation of a new government in Afghanistan today. Their spokesperson also said China has promised to keep its embassy open and increase humanitarian aid to Afghanistan. Meanwhile, the UN says it has resumed humanitarian flights to parts of the country and 3 planes have arrived in Mazar-e-Sharif so far. Israeli troops have martyred another Palestinian as they opened live fire on the anti-blockade protesters in Gaza Strip. Gaza's health ministry says the 26-year-old Ahmad Saleh was shot in the abdomen, while at least 15 others are wounded. The Yemeni army says it has killed at least 140 Houthi rebels in the renewed fighting in the central province of Marib. In an interview, the army's military media director said these clashes are the most aggressive since the last 5 years. This comes as Houthis' attacks on government positions to capture oil-rich Marib entered the 5th day. In the United States, the death toll from flash flooding in 4 northeastern states has risen to at least 46. Remnants of Hurricane Ida unleashed torrential rains mainly in New York, New Jersey and Pennsylvania. More than 170,000 homes remain without power and an emergency has been declared across the region. Mexico has registered nearly 1,000 daily deaths from COVID-19 and more than 18,000 new cases. In Pakistan, the virus claimed 57 more lives and infected almost 3,800 people overnight. Globally, the coronavirus death toll is over 4.5 million, while the caseload has exceeded 219 million. News in detail after a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now let's have the news in detail. Start from Afghanistan, where the Taliban are expected to announce the formation of a new government in Afghanistan today. Taliban leader says preparations are underway for the ceremony inside the presidential palace. The Taliban have already appointed administrative officials for various provinces and regions. Meanwhile, government agencies have gradually started operations. A Taliban spokesperson also said China has promised to keep its embassy open and increase humanitarian aid to Afghanistan. Suhail Shaheen added that the UK also reiterated its to increase its humanitarian assistance and future cooperation with the Taliban. Meanwhile, the UN says it has resumed humanitarian flights to parts of the country and 3 planes have arrived in Mazar-e-Sharif so far. United Kingdom's Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab has arrived in Pakistan to discuss Afghanistan's fluid situation. It is his first visit to Islamabad as a Foreign Secretary. During the 2-day visit, Raab will meet the Foreign Minister, Shamim Qureshi, as well as other civilian and military leaders. They will discuss how to encourage the Taliban to allow safe passage for the refugees. They will also deliberate upon ways to prevent Afghanistan from becoming a hub for terrorist groups. It comes as the UK announced £30 million in aid to Afghanistan's neighbours. On Thursday, Raab said evacuations may be able to resume from Kabul airport in the near future. Pakistan says the international community should remain engaged with Afghanistan to ensure economic stability. Foreign Minister Shamim Qureshi said it is in a telephonic conversation with his Slovenian counterpart Andrzej Logar. The Foreign Minister underlined that the European Union can play a pivotal role in this regard. Qureshi also highlighted the salience of an inclusive political settlement. Earlier, in a telephonic conversation with the Austrian Foreign Minister Alexander, Qureshi called for intensive efforts to stabilize Afghanistan's security situation and preclude any exodus of refugees. Skalgenberg thanked Islamabad for its support in facilitating the transit of Austrian nationals and others from Kabul. Meanwhile, Israeli troops have martyred another Palestinian as they open live fire on the anti-blockade protesters in the Gaza Strip. Gaza's health ministry says the 26-year-old Ahmed Saleh was shot in the abdomen. It said at least 15 others are wounded, including 5 children, while one of them is in critical condition. Meanwhile, Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas met his Egyptian counterpart Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and Jordan's King Abdullah in Cairo. Abbas said Israel's actions have made a two-state solution impossible, but he is ready to take confidence-building measures and restore calm. Now, Syria says it has intercepted an Israeli aerial attack targeting multiple locations in the capital Damascus. Syrian state media said Israel launched a number of missiles from Lebanon's airspace. It said most of the missiles were downed by the army and the strikes only caused material damage. Syrian Foreign Ministry called on the United Nations Security Council to press Israel to stop violating citizens' rights in occupied the Golan Heights. It said the international bodies must intervene immediately to enable citizens to return to their towns. Now, the Yemeni army says it has killed at least 140 Houthi rebels in the renewed fighting in the central province of Marib. In an interview, the army's military media director said these clashes are the most aggressive since the last 5 years.
Yemen's Houthi rebels have intensified their attacks on government positions in an attempt to break through the defenses and capture the city of Marib. But Yemeni army said government forces backed by the Arab coalition had succeeded in fending off the latest assaults. The military media director said 41 sorties of coalition jets raided dozens of Houthi targets and resulted in major losses for the group. The Arab media quoted Yemeni sources as saying that a senior Houthi leader, Mohammed Hussein al-Houthi, has also been killed in an air raid. However, in a televised speech, Houthis' top leader Abdul Malik Houthi said the group will continue to fight until it seizes back all areas. He said the US and Israeli regime are the main beneficiaries of the ongoing Yemen war. Meanwhile, a government body overseeing displacement camps in Yemen said many families have been forced to flee villages in Rahaba due to the indiscriminate shelling. Earlier, the Arab coalition intercepted an explosives-laden drone launched by the Houthis toward the Saudi city of Khamis Mushayed. Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken expressed a strong commitment to U.S.-Saudi strategic partnership and to helping Riyadh defend its people and territory.
Now, in the United States, the death toll from flash flooding in 4 northeastern states has risen to at least 46. Remnants of the Hurricane Ida unleashed torrential rains mainly in New Jersey and Pennsylvania. More than 170,000 homes remained without power and an emergency has been declared across the region. Emergency workers in Rapt rescued people trapped in their homes and cars. President Joe Biden has ordered federal assistance to supplement local response efforts amid the harsh weather conditions. Biden said historic investment is needed to deal with the climate crisis. Now, moving on, in the U.S., at least 4 people have died and 2 others got injured after a small plane crashed into a building in Connecticut. Officials say the accident happened due to a mechanical failure. They say the jet with 2 pilots and 2 passengers on board took off the Robertson Airport and was headed to North Carolina. Authorities have launched an investigation into the tragic incident. Meanwhile, Mexico has registered nearly 1,000 daily deaths from COVID-19 and more than 18,000 new cases. While globally, the coronavirus death toll is over 4.5 million, while the caseload has exceeded 219 million. Details about the pandemic in this report. New COVID-19 variants, more vaccine controversies and protests against the mandatory COVID-19 vaccination rules continue to dampen the efforts to fight against the pandemic. The new Mu variant, first identified in January in Colombia, has now become the country's dominant strain, driving its deadliest outbreak. After the reports that the Latin American region is in grave need of vaccines, Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro has signed off a law allowing for vaccines and medication patents to be broken into public emergency. Meanwhile, the European Union has agreed to send millions of vaccine doses made in South Africa back to the continent. South Africa will also stop sending more doses to Europe amid reports that Africa struggles with vaccination drive, partly due to a lack of supply. In Greece, government offered unvaccinated healthcare workers a second chance to get a shot and allow those suspended to return to work. However, hundreds of workers continue to protest against mandatory jabs.
This measure is unfair. Government need to rethink it. Our unvaccinated colleagues are afraid, or they have their reasons, but all of them are not anti-vaccine. The government needs to realize that we are in the middle of the fourth wave, and they are adding 10,000 jobs that needs to be filled along with like thousands of personnel needed in the sector. What are the hospitals going to do in this fourth wave? As beds are filling up?
New Zealand has reported a big drop in daily cases compared to the last few days as the country breaks the chain of transmission of the Delta variant. Australia has secured 4 million Pfizer doses in a swap deal with the UK as Prime Minister Scott Morrison urged states to stick to a national reopening plan. However, a steady rise in infections in Sydney, Melbourne from the Delta variant stoked concerns in virus-free state. Meanwhile, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un ordered a tougher epidemic prevention campaign after turning down vaccines offered via the UN-backed program. Meanwhile, Pakistan has registered 57 deaths from coronavirus over the past 24 hours. The Health Ministry says the nationwide tally of fatalities has crossed 26,000. The ministry said the virus infected nearly 3,800 people overnight. The country's caseload has exceeded 1.17 million, while over 1,055,000 have recovered. Health officials say over 90,000 cases are active, of which more than 5,600 are critical. Pakistan has administered over 58 million COVID-19 shots to date. More news coming up in this news bulletin after a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back now. Japan's Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga says he will not run for re-election as party leader this month. Suga announced his intention to resign at an emergency meeting of senior members of the ruling Liberal Democratic Party. In a press briefing, Suga said he wants to focus on anti-coronavirus measures. Suga took over last September, but his approval ratings have sunk to an all-time low over pandemic handling. Ruling party officials said Suga will finish his term as president. This means he will stay on until his successor is chosen in the party-wide election slated for 29th of September. Now in New Zealand, police have shot dead a man after he stabbed at least 6 shoppers at Auckland's supermarket. Authorities say 3 of those wounded are in critical condition and 1 is serious. At a briefing, Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern described the incident as a terrorist attack. Ardern said the attacker was a Sri Lankan national who had been in New Zealand for 10 years. She noted the man had been a person of interest for about 5 years. The Prime Minister said the violent extremist was inspired by the IS militant group. A police commissioner said there is no further risk as the attacker was acting alone. An 11-year-old Parisian boy has found his own way of helping to protect the environment by fishing metal objects from the Seine River. Everything started when Rafael first saw YouTube videos of people fishing objects out of rivers with magnets in 2019. Soon after, he got his first magnet for Christmas and saw it as a way to do something for the planet.
J'ai l'impression d'agir pour la planète.
I feel like I'm doing something for the planet, even if it is not much on my own small level, but at least I'm doing something. Some who are 10 or 11 years old stay at home and play soccer. Well, at 11 years old, I know I'm cleaning up. Not the entire planet, but I'm still cleaning up.
In a year and a half, Rafael has finished about 300 bikes, 200 scooters and 100 shipping trolleys out of the Seine and Paris canals. He has also fished several odd items, including handguns, a German rifle, an artillery shell, and a jewel adorned with a precious stone. Rafael wants to raise awareness about the climate change and hopes it encourages others to also step up their efforts to save the planet.
My goal is to raise awareness so that a maximum of people do something. They don't have to do what I do, but at least do something. Even if it's not necessarily cleaning up canals, it could just be picking up a cigarette butt.
In October 2020, he was awarded the Medal of Paris, a distinction for people who accomplished a remarkable deed concerning the city. An exhibition with some of Raphael's treasures and items most commonly found in the scene will open later this month in Paris. Well, the stocks in the Asia-Pacific are trading mixed as investors reacted to the Japanese Prime Minister's announcement of stepping down. The Nikkei 225 in Japan jumped more than 2%. South Korea's Kospi climbed nearly 8%. In Australia, the ASX 200 also gained 0.5%. However, Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index shed more than 8%. The Shanghai Composite in mainland China also dropped close to 0.25%. And now let's have a look at how the weather is doing around the world. And that is all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news.